Behind the glamorous facade of Hollywood's golden age, studio executives paid millions to cover up secrets. Passionate affairs, heartbreaking betrayals, and career-destroying scandals unfolded when the cameras stopped rolling. America idolized these larger-than-life stars as paragons of virtue and romance. But the truth behind closed doors was far more salacious than anything that ever made its way to the silver screen. Today, we pull back the curtain on Hollywood's most explosive secret, the forbidden romances that ignited between married co-stars once the directors yelled cut. These weren't casual flings, passionate, destructive love affairs. They shattered marriages and ruined reputations and, in one heartbreaking case, cost a beloved actress nearly everything dear to her. The golden age of Hollywood wrote the rule book on concealing celebrity indiscretions. The studio fixers worked around the clock, doing whatever it took to keep these affairs out of the public eye, going to extraordinary lengths to protect the meticulously built images of their stars. They paid off photographers, silenced hotel employees, and in some astonishing cases, even hid pregnancies through elaborate deceptions that, to this day, are almost unimaginable. But what makes these stories so compelling is not just the scandal. It is understanding how these forbidden romances transformed Hollywood history. Films that we love today were often created in the midst of emotional turmoil. The real-life passions of their actors played out between takes. And that sizzling chemistry on screen? It wasn't always acting. It was the tangible proof of passion that couldn't be kept inside, even when the cameras rolled. Number 1. Clark Gable and Loretta Young. One of the best-kept scandals in Hollywood history was shared by Clark Gable and Loretta Young. When the two actors were cast in Call of the Wild in 1935, studio executives never dreamed the life-changing consequences their on-location romance would produce. Already married to his second wife, Maria Rhea Langham, Gable was Hollywood's reigning king, while Young was a devout Catholic known for her wholesome image and strict moral code. The affair began during the frigid shoot in Washington state. Isolated from civilization and away from prying eyes, the charm of Gable proved impossible for 22-year-old Young to resist. According to the film's assistant director, the isolation seemed to create a bubble in which normal rules did not apply. They thought no one would ever know. Reality came crashing down when Young discovered she was pregnant, a potentially career-ending scandal for both stars. What followed was one of Hollywood's most elaborate cover-ups. Young disappeared from public view, secretly gave birth to a daughter, and orchestrated a bizarre adoption of her own child. She later returned to Hollywood with what she claimed was her newly adopted daughter, Judy. A makeup artist who worked with Young later revealed it was not just an affair. It was a lifelong secret with a child at the center. Loretta would do her daughter's makeup before anyone came to the house, darkening her eyebrows and reshaping her ears, which were identical to Gable's. The lengths she went to hide the truth were heartbreaking. For decades, Young kept the adoption story, even from Judy herself. It wasn't until 1966 that Judy finally learned the truth when she overheard a stranger comment on her striking resemblance to Clark Gable. Confronted, Young finally confessed the secret she had harbored for over 30 years. What is most fascinating about this affair is how well it pulled off the cover-up. Before the times of digital manipulation and social media, Young's career remained intact. Gable never publicly acknowledged his daughter, and the studio system protected its assets at all costs. Judy Lewis, the product of this secret affair, would later become an actress in her own right and would write in her memoir that she lived her life as a lie. Her birth had been a shameful secret hidden at all costs, and she didn't understand why until she became an adult, looking upon the mirror and seeing Clark Gable staring back. The affair did not just create momentary scandal, but created a living secret that three people carried for decades. Number 2. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. The affair of Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton was to become one of Hollywood's most notorious scandals. Their explosive romance began on the set of Cleopatra in 1963, a film already the most expensive production of its time. Taylor was married to her fourth husband, the singer Eddie Fisher, whom she had notoriously taken from America's sweetheart Debbie Reynolds. Burton was married to Sybil Williams, his wife of 14 years. None of those commitments mattered once Taylor and Burton locked eyes. Their attraction was immediate and overwhelming. The film's director later claimed that he would call cut, and they would still be kissing. It was not acting. It was real. The production soon became secondary to their uninhibited passion. Shooting schedules were often delayed as the stars disappeared to their dressing rooms together. What made this affair different from all the others in history was that they made absolutely no attempt to conceal it. They paraded their romance in restaurants and hotels across Rome, where the film was shooting. Pictures of them in compromising positions spread across newspapers worldwide, leading to a media frenzy unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. The scandal became so big that even the Vatican weighed in with an official denunciation, calling Taylor immoral and calling their affair a threat to the institution of marriage. A congressman in America even condemned them on the floor of the House of Representatives. A member of the Cleopatra crew later said that they did not care who they hurt as long as they had each other. It was like two people possessed. Nothing else mattered, not their spouses, not their careers, nor even the millions of dollars involved in the production. Their affair destroyed both marriages. Taylor divorced Fisher. Burton divorced Williams. In 1964, the scandalous lovers married. Their relationship remained volatile. They divorced in 1974, remarried in 1975, and divorced again in 1976. Their love story was as dramatic off-screen as any role they ever played. Film historian David Thompson later wrote that their affair didn't just change their lives, it transformed Hollywood itself. After Burton and Taylor, the public's expectations of star behavior changed. The era of carefully managed images began to give way to a new, more transparent celebrity culture. Their legendary passion produced some of cinema's most unforgettable collaborations, including Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where real-life volatility infused their performances with raw authenticity. But it also left tremendous pain in its wake for their abandoned spouses, their children, and ultimately for each other. Number 3. Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini. The most devastating affair on this list took place between Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini, one that cost its star nearly everything she held dear. When Bergman traveled to Italy in 1949 to film Stromboli with the neo-realist acclaimed director Roberto Rossellini, she was at the height of her Hollywood stardom. Fresh from such classics as Casablanca and Notorious, she came across as wholesome and graceful to millions of adoring fans. Rossellini was married and had a son, and Bergman herself was already married to neurosurgeon Peter Lindstrom, with whom she had a 10-year-old daughter, Pia. Within weeks of meeting each other, however, they found themselves embroiled in a passionate affair. The filming location on the volcanic island of Stromboli offered little privacy, and the news of their relationship soon got to the press. Then came the announcement that shook Hollywood. Bergman was carrying Rossellini's child. In the era of morality clauses standard in studio contracts, this was more than a scandal, it was professional devastation. The backlash was immediate and merciless. Bergman was denounced from pulpits across America. Theater owners removed her pictures from their lobbies and refused to show her films. Most shocking, she was even condemned on the floor of the United States Senate, where Colorado Senator Edwin Johnson declared her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. The worst of the consequences was when Bergman's ex-husband, Lindstrom, refused to let her see their daughter, Pia. Full custody was given to him by the courts, and Bergman was basically kept from her firstborn child for many years. As a close friend later related, she gave up her career, her reputation, and her child for a man who would leave her anyway. There were nights when Bergman sobbed uncontrollably while looking through pictures of Pia, wondering if her daughter would ever forgive her. After her divorce from Lindstrom, Bergman married Rossellini in May 1950. The couple had 3 children, a son and twin daughters, including actress Isabella Rossellini. But the relationship that cost Bergman so dearly did not last. Rossellini also began having affairs, and they divorced in 1957. The cruel irony was that just as her marriage was ending, Bergman was finally welcomed back to Hollywood, winning an Academy Award for Anastasia in 1956. Her exile had lasted 7 years. In her absence, social attitudes had begun to shift, and the studio system that once enforced rigid moral codes was losing its grip on the industry. Film critic Roger Ebert later wrote that Bergman's treatment revealed the stunning hypocrisy of the era. Male stars routinely had affairs without consequence, while her career was nearly destroyed for falling in love with the wrong man at the wrong time. The punishment far exceeded the so-called crime. Bergman eventually reconciled with her daughter and rebuilt her career, but the scars remained. Years later, when asked if she had regrets, she replied simply that she had none. She only regretted the things she did not do. Number 4. Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. Joan Crawford and Clark Gable had what is commonly referred to as Hollywood's longest affair. Gable shows up twice on this list for good reason. His decades-long relationship with Crawford began when they co-starred in Dance Fools, Dance in 1931, and continued through 8 films together and multiple marriages to other people. MGM head Louis B. Mayer actively encouraged their on-screen pairings because of their undeniable chemistry, while simultaneously working to ensure their off-screen relationship remained hidden from the public. A studio publicity man later admitted that Mayer knew about Crawford and Gable from the start and ensured they never got caught. They used cars with tinted glass, backdoor entrances to hotels, and even doubles who appeared with their spouses in public. The studio arranged it all. The affair continued, it seems, even after Gable married actress Carole Lombard in 1939. More remarkably still, if Crawford's personal assistant is to be believed, Lombard knew about their ongoing desire for each other and once said to Joan, directly and unchastened, that she could have him on the set, but he always came home to her. Following Lombard's tragic death in a plane crash in 1942, it is said Gable and Crawford resumed their physical relationship during the shooting of They All Kissed the Bride. According to one wardrobe supervisor, they couldn't stay away from each other, lying to everyone else, so they could be together. With Carole gone, Crawford thought at last she might have Gable for keeps, but it wasn't to be. He never wholly committed to her, and she finally wearied of waiting. The professional pairings ended, but according to friends and acquaintances, the two remained inextricably linked emotionally until the time of Gable's 1960 death. Crawford's daughter Christina would later write that her mother kept a special box of photos of herself and Gable, taking them out every year on the anniversary of his death to have a drink and lock herself in her room for hours. Whatever they had shared never really ended for her. Their affair spanned nearly 3 decades, weathered several marriages, and remained all but hidden from the public. It stood as a testament to both the power of the studio system and the real connection between two of Hollywood's most iconic figures. Number 5. Lana Turner and Tyrone Power. Lana Turner and Tyrone Power had one of Hollywood's most passionate flings. When they co-starred in Johnny Apollo in 1940, they created one of the era's most visually stunning couples. Already married to French actress Annabella, Power was at the height of his fame as 20th Century Fox's biggest romantic lead. Turner, just 19, was already gaining notoriety as a rising sex symbol. Their attraction to each other was instantaneous and overwhelming. Turner would later admit through private correspondence that it was not for the cameras, it was real. According to a set electrician, they made the studio lot into a battlefield of lust. They vanished into Power's dressing room between takes and reappeared disheveled and aglow. Everybody knew. Nobody spoke. Power was too valuable for the studio, while Turner was going to be their new big star. What especially made the affair so risky was Power's very public marriage. The studio had heavily invested into painting him as the ultimate husband, and the truth would have ruined that reputation beyond restoration. 20th Century Fox took extraordinary measures to keep their relationship secret. A studio security guard later claimed he was instructed to warn them if Annabella ever came to the set unexpectedly. There was even a special bell that would ring inside Power's dressing room if she arrived. The affair burned intensely but briefly. By the time filming wrapped, both stars had moved on to new projects and new romances. Yet, those who worked with them later said Turner always maintained a special connection to Power. A makeup artist once recalled that whenever his name came up, Turner's eyes would grow distant. After a few drinks one night, She said he was the one man who could match her passion for passion. Some flames burn out, she said. The ones that do not leave scars. Number 6. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier. One of Hollywood's most celebrated and troubled marriages, Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier's affair, began in 1936 during the production of Fire Over England. Both were married at the time, Leigh to barrister Lee Holman, Olivier to actress Jill Esmond. Their connection was immediate and consuming. Olivier later wrote that he could not help himself with Vivien and felt like a moth drawn to a flame that would inevitably consume him. Unlike the many affairs of that era, they eventually divorced their spouses and married each other in 1940. The union was vaunted as a perfect marriage of theatrical royalty. Their collaborations in films and Shakespearean stage performances created an artistic legacy that seemed to justify the scandalous beginning. However, the passion ignited in betrayal would, some years later, unravel into tragedy. Leigh's increasingly erratic behavior, later diagnosed as bipolar disorder, deeply strained their relationship. According to a number of biographers, Leigh continued to have affairs with co-stars throughout their marriage, mirroring the way in which their relationship had started. A stage manager said once that their love began in betrayal and ended in madness. The awful irony was that Olivier had to bear witness to Leigh doing to him what they had done to their first spouses, and her slow descent into mental illness. They divorced after 20 years together in 1960. He later married actress Joan Plowright. Leigh continued to struggle with her health before her death in 1967. It is one of theater's most tragic tales. Number 7. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Few open secrets ran longer than that of Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. An affair that started when the two co-starred in Woman of a Year in 1942 and continued up until Tracy's death in 1967. It spanned 9 films and nearly 3 decades. What was unusual about this relationship was Tracy's refusal to divorce his wife, Louise. A devout Catholic, Tracy remained married despite eventually living separately for many years. The effect of this left Hepburn as an unacknowledged partner who could not claim their relationship even in public, or even attend Tracy's funeral. Directors who worked with them said they were more than just partners. They were each other's second life. Publicly, they kept up the charade of being no more than frequent co-stars who had an especially appealing chemistry. The studio executives fostered the collaborations but protected their privacy. Their on-screen pairings in movies such as Adam's Rib and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner were created upon natural screen affinity, with directors often encouraging real-life developments between the couple. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of their story was Hepburn's devotion during Tracy's final years as his health declined. Though they never lived together permanently, she devoted herself to his care in private while maintaining the public illusion that they were only colleagues. During the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Tracy was very ill and uninsurable. Hepburn negotiated with the studio to secure his participation and ensured his comfort every day on set. After his death, she remained silent about their relationship for many years. When she finally spoke about it in her 1991 autobiography, she wrote simply that she loved Spencer Tracy and would have done anything for him. Number 8. Greta Garbo and John Gilbert. Greta Garbo and John Gilbert soon found themselves at the center of the silent film era's most explosive scandals. When they fell passionately in love in 1926 while filming Flesh and the Devil, their affair sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Gilbert was married to his second wife, Leatrice Joy, but that hardly stopped him from pursuing his enigmatic Swedish co-star with an unrelenting will. Their on-screen kisses in the film remain some of the most genuinely erotic moments in silent cinema, largely because they weren't acting. The cinematographer later remembered that no direction was called for during those scenes because they truly consumed each other. Sometimes, the camera would just capture what took place between them. Within weeks of meeting, Gilbert had left his wife for Garbo and proposed to her. According to MGM staff, he was desperate to make the relationship legitimate, buying a mansion for them and planning an elaborate wedding. Garbo, however, remained fiercely independent and had different intentions. A studio executive later claimed she wanted the passion, not the paperwork. The wedding was arranged, guests were arriving, and Garbo simply did not show up. Gilbert was devastated, publicly humiliated in front of the entire industry. Despite this humiliation, the affair continued on and off, feeding their performances in later films together. Their professional collaboration produced 4 successful movies, but their personal relationship went on to become increasingly volatile. When sound films arrived, Gilbert's career collapsed due to his unsuitable voice, while Garbo's star continued to rise. The shift in power added another painful layer to the unstable relationship. Film historian Robert Osborne would later write, "What began as one of Hollywood's most passionate affairs ended as a cautionary tale." Gilbert never recovered, either professionally or personally, from his obsession with Garbo. Gilbert died in 1936 at only 38 years old, his health destroyed by alcoholism that many of his friends attributed to his turbulent relationship with Garbo. True to her reclusive nature, Garbo did not attend his funeral and rarely spoke of him again. Yet those close to her claimed she kept a photograph of him in her apartment until her death in 1990. Their story remains a reminder that even in the silent era, stars' private lives could become public spectacles with consequences that outlasted their careers. Number 9. Debbie Reynolds and Robert Wagner. One of the lesser-known, but most intriguing rumored affairs in Hollywood involves Debbie Reynolds and Robert Wagner. The rumored affair happened when both were working on the movie Say One for Me in 1959. Its timing was particularly interesting, coming immediately after Reynolds' very public and humiliating divorce from Eddie Fisher, who left her for Elizabeth Taylor. Meanwhile, Wagner was in a romantic relationship with Natalie Wood, although they were separated at that time. According to a makeup artist on set, both Reynolds and Wagner were emotionally wounded and found comfort in each other. Unlike many affairs of the era, theirs was reportedly conducted with extreme discretion. One production assistant claimed nothing happened on set and that they remained consummate professionals during filming. But there were late-night meetings at a private bungalow in Malibu, carefully arranged by the studio with drivers and locations chosen to avoid detection. What's most remarkable about this alleged affair is how skillfully it was hidden from view. With Reynolds being one of the most scrutinized stars of the period, in the aftermath of the Fisher-Taylor scandal, the fact that this reputed relationship remained protected speaks to the lingering potency of the Hollywood publicity apparatus. Reynolds never denied or confirmed the story. In her 2013 autobiography, she wrote that, after Eddie, she found solace in unexpected quarters, and some stories weren't hers alone to tell. Wagner never commented publicly on the rumor either. As one close friend of Reynolds later explained, after the public humiliation with Fisher and Taylor, Debbie needed to feel desirable again. With Wagner, she found healing rather than love, and sometimes that mattered more. This quiet, unconfirmed affair represents the countless discreet liaisons that likely occurred throughout the studio era without ever becoming public scandals. Number 10. Desi Arnaz and several co-stars. Desi Arnaz's relentless infidelity brings this list to a powerful and painful conclusion. While Lucille Ball charmed America as the lovable zany housewife on I Love Lucy, her real husband was carrying on torrid affairs with co-stars, showgirls, and even extras from their own show. The bitter irony was that while millions of Americans adored Lucy and Desi as the perfect couple, their marriage was falling apart behind the scenes due to his constant betrayals. According to several staff members, Arnaz made little effort to conceal his infidelities from the production staff. Years later, a set designer would relate that he played the good husband on the air while maintaining hotel rooms for his conquests in reality. Everyone knew, including Lucy. She would occasionally receive calls at the studio from some of Arnaz's women, either to hurt her or warn her. The look on her face at such times, staff remembered, was devastating. Arnaz's behavior was all the more remarkable because of the contrast between his screen and real-life personalities. On screen, he was the loving Ricky Ricardo, one half of television's most idealized marriages. Off-screen, his infidelities were so legion, they became an open secret throughout Hollywood. Betty White once said that everyone loved Desi because he was charming and talented and impossible to stay mad at, but his weakness for women was his undoing. The saddest part, she said, was watching Lucy pretend she did not know when everyone else did. Eventually, the strain became too much to bear, and despite their phenomenally successful show and production company, Ball filed for divorce in 1960. When asked why, she simply said they could not hold it together. Years later, Arnaz would admit that he had been a lousy husband and that Lucy deserved better. He also confessed that he never stopped loving her. Their daughter Lucy Arnaz later explained that her father loved her mother until the day he died, but loving someone and being good for them are not the same thing. Desi Arnaz's infidelities are a final reminder that the perfect marriages of Hollywood's golden age often masked far more painful realities. Behind the fantasy world that millions escaped into were real people, flawed and vulnerable to temptation. These affairs shaped careers, destroyed families, and in some cases rewrote Hollywood history itself. Some stars paid devastating prices for following their hearts, while others emerged largely unscathed. If there was one common truth behind it all, it was that the most compelling dramas often never made it to the screen.